welcome back to Great Sports Debates. I'm back with our power rankings for Week 8. So, kind of a crazy week, a few things that surprised me, but at the bottom there's no shakeup, with the winless Carolina Panthers still at 32. So, Bryce Young is a rookie. He hasn't looked great yet. That doesn't mean anything. It's still early on in the year. They traded away the best weapon he would have had, so weapons on offense are limited, and the defense has a few key players, but it's just too much for this team. They'll probably pull out a few victories over the course of the season with the parity in the league, but they look to be the worst team in the league so far. At 31 is Arizona. This is the team I thought would be in bottom, just with their issues at quarterback and limited roster to begin with. They've been competitive in every game, but at some point I got to move them down where they belong because they only have one win. But I do like the way that this team plays, and hopefully they can turn it around in the right direction by making some good picks going forward. At 30 is the New York Giants. I know they won, but I still don't have a lot of faith in them. They've got smashed by several teams. The offense still doesn't look great. Even with Tyrod Taylor leading the way, they scored a grand total of 14 points. So it's a struggle no matter how much opportunity they get for their offense to do anything. The offensive line is terrible. The one positive note is that they did generate a pass rush that helped their defense, getting 6 sacks against the Commanders, which was more than they had all year long. Let's see if that is a positive note or a trend in the right direction, or maybe it's just an aberration. But I'm going to need to see more before I move the Giants up from 30. At 29 is another team that won. It's the New England Patriots. I can't move them up too much because at the end of the day, their previous 3 games, they lost to the Raiders and just got smoked by Dallas and New Orleans. The offense still looks like a struggle, but they did okay and got some points up. I thought Bill Belichick, who everyone has on the hot seat, actually set things up really well with a passing attack that consisted of Mac Jones of doing screen slants and short outs, of just getting the ball out quick and letting him make short, accurate passes, teamed with the running game. And he found a way to do enough on defense despite missing a lot of key players. But still, I don't see the playmakers that excite me about the Patriots that's going to have them in most games. At 28, it's the Raiders. I know they've won 3 games on the season. I know somebody told me last week I was being disrespectful to the Raiders. I think I might have them a spot or so above this. But, they just got smoked by the Chicago Bears that aren't that great. And, the teams that they beat, they beat a Denver team that's also pretty bad that really outplayed them. And the offense is just really cringe to watch. Hoyer lost his 13th straight game as a starter, which was a stat I was unaware of. But honestly, the rookie probably played worse than him when he was in. And while they're both a step below Jimmy G, he wasn't doing much with this offense either when he was playing. And I don't think the offense is going to be able to do a lot. And the bad part about that is if Crosby can't get pressure, their defense is going to get cooked eventually as well. So this is a team that I don't see a lot of upside for. At 27, we got the Green Bay Packers. They lose again. They started out with 2 wins on the season, and maybe the NFC North is just the worst division in football because Jordan Love is not good. He can't hit open guys. He has bad decision making. His accuracy is not the greatest. So even when their offensive line is right, if they can run the ball, I think that's going to be a challenge. Teams are going to continue to challenge him to beat them. And the defense has given up a few of their key playmakers. And while they've played well enough to win, I don't think their offense is going to help them enough. And I think they're going to be a below average team for the rest of the year. At 26, we got the Chicago Bears. Now, they came in and won the game with a undrafted rookie quarterback, and I honestly thought he looked pretty good and was smart the way he was able to continue to look down the field, well under pressure and get the ball out quick, which really helps that Bears offensive line. They set him up for success, starting with screen to DJ Moore and a couple of short slants and outs to get him going, mixed with a strong running game. Chicago looked great, but again, they were playing the Raiders, but they totally crushed them. At 25, we got the Denver Broncos. Now, it's hard to move a team this bad up, but the fact is they won again. They beat Green Bay. They also beat Chicago on this year, so that's two of the teams that they're ahead of. And, despite Russell Wilson not being the player that a lot of people thought he was when he got traded to Denver, he is still a decent enough quarterback that, with the running backs they have and the potential that some people thought their wide receivers have, can do enough to score a little bit. And I'm still puzzled to why the defense doesn't play better. But they have a few playmakers there as well. The problem is, opposite some of those playmakers are some real weaknesses. At 24, we got the Minnesota Vikings. I know I've had them a bit higher most of the year, but that was just kind of counting on their offense to keep them in games. With Justin Jefferson still on the IR, Minnesota looks like a completely different team as we predicted. They struggled to beat the Bears, and the game was actually closer than the score when they played that game. I expect them to get demolished by San Francisco on Monday night. If that goes different, maybe we need to move them back up a little bit. But at the end of the day, I think they have, 2 wins on the season. They're just not a good team. They don't have enough pieces. They can't move the ball well. And their defense has just been a total sieve. Maybe they need to be sellers and see what they can get out of key playmakers like Hawkinson on the offense, Cousins, because he's not a guy that you don't want to keep bringing back. And on the defensive side, their edge is a monster. Somebody's going to want that player. So I think they could get some real value there. At 23, we got the Tennessee Titans. This is one of the teams I've seen the least. We've had them kind of in this range all year. They've won a couple of games. They got Derrick Henry, but at the end of the day, people are going to continue to load the box when your quarterback options have Ryan Tannehill starting. It's just, he's not good. The players that they've drafted to replace him are not good. And they better hope that they can develop Levis because, Willis is clearly not the answer either. At 22, it's the Washington Commanders. They really disappointed me in this game against the Giants. To only put up 7, Sam Howell played terrible, and to let that team beat them, it doesn't make a lot of sense to me. I feel like they couldn't do anything on offense. And although the defense played well enough to win, holding the Giants to 14, holding any NFL team to 14 is good, but it was the Giants, so really kind of disappointed with their performance. And I know they have 3 wins on the season, but they're in a division where they're going to get beat up by Dallas and Philly, and things are not looking good for Washington. I was really disappointed in how Sam Howell played. At 21, we got the Colts. Between their offensive line and Taylor and kind of anyone else you throw in the mix there, their offense is looking to play pretty well. Miocic finally had that game that we thought he might have against Jacksonville to keep that game a little bit closer a week or two ago. And they racked up 38 points on a Browns team that everyone was trying to tell me had the best defense in the league, and they did numbers-wise. But in the end, they still lost that game. But I think the Colts, I don't want to say are a promising team, but I think they're definitely better than the bottom tier teams. At 20, we got Tampa Bay, and this might be too low, considering they have, I think, 3 wins on the season. and they're definitely in the mix for that division. But, losing to the Falcons is just bad. They got smoked by Detroit. That game wasn't competitive the week before. And the offense is struggling despite the connection that Baker has with Mike Evans. So this might be closer to where they really should be at. We'll wait and see. At 19, I got the Cleveland Browns. We slid them up a couple of spots. I know some people thought I was disrespecting the Browns, but I think after this game, their defensive ranking will be closer to where they really are. And if I was a Browns fan, I wouldn't be too excited about the future because you got a ton of money tied up in Deshaun Watson, and he looked beyond terrible again. So no matter how good that defense is, when teams are going to keep getting opportunities, they're going to fold. And some reason, despite the talent they have in their defensive backfield, it never really lives up to that. But I do like their DC, and they do have Myles Garrett, so that's always a positive. At 18, we got the New York Jets. I know some people think that's too high for the Jets. I do think that Zach Wilson isn't playing terrible. He's learning to get the ball out quick to help his offensive line. I think a really strong weapon at wide receiver that's going to help him out a ton. And then he's got multiple options at running back that can really help him just make the offense not terrible. And that's going to keep them in games because I really do like them on the defensive end. But the biggest thing is they have to be able to threaten the pass so people cannot just load up. And if they can do that, who knows? We might have to reevaluate. They might be a team that could sneak into the playoffs. But we have them at 18 for right now. At 17 and probably a little too high, we got the Atlanta Falcons. But, at some point, they have 4 wins. We've talked about it before. I really like Kyle Pitts. I like Drake London. Jesse Bates was a great signing. And Ridner did not play absolutely terrible. But as I say every week, he's the limiting piece that makes me not have faith in the Atlanta Falcons. At 16, we got the New Orleans Saints. They lost to Jacksonville this week, but they made a hell of a comeback in the second half. And the offense is playing pretty good. I definitely like the defense. They definitely are in a winnable division. So 16 is where I got the Saints for right now. At 15, I got the LA Rams. They lost the game they probably should have won at Pittsburgh, but Pittsburgh completely locked them up in the second half. And, that's the tough part when it comes to the Rams is, Matt Stafford needs time and he can shred teams, but sometimes they just wind up getting blanked. And the fact that they're allowed Pittsburgh to get back in the game with their subpar offense definitely leaves question marks about this team. Not to mention looking at what their record is on the year. At 14, I have the LA Chargers. Now, the Chargers are still a team that I'm high on, and I do like them. Like I said earlier in the year, I don't know if they're a playoff team because they are in a tough division and they are in a tough conference, and they've kind of set themselves back pretty far now. I think where they get 2 wins on the year. They've had a gauntlet schedule, and they were in it the first half with Kansas City, but they totally got shut down on the second half. And if the offense isn't going to be able to score like clockwork, the defense is not going to be able to keep them in many games. So, Bosa's awesome, but he's going to need more help. And Herbert, everyone keeps saying how great he is, and he's definitely one of the top quarterbacks, but man, he just misses some guys that are wide open sometimes. He's got some talented people around him. But for right now, I got the Chargers at 14. At 13, I have the Pittsburgh Steelers. And this is the highest I've had them all year. I really don't like their offense. I don't trust this team. But they have 4 wins in a tough division. I mean, they beat Baltimore, even though I thought Baltimore really outplayed them in the first half. And the teams they've lost to are really good. You know, at some point, we just have to give T.J. Watt credit and say, man, like, this is one hell of a defender that is literally won several games for them. At 12, it's the Houston Texans. This is definitely too high. But I just couldn't really figure out where to fit them in. I just really like C.J. Stroud. When he has time, he's made a nice connection with Nico Collins. Their offense has potential. I like their coaching staff. I like the positions they put him in. Will Anderson Jr. looks like he's a baller. They have a few good pieces. This isn't a team that I expect to make the playoffs, but, you know, who knows what the division that they're in. At 11, I got the Seattle Seahawks. No matter how bad their offensive line's rated, Geno seems to get time, especially when he needs it. They found a way to win without DK this week, and they're rolling pretty good despite the setback at Cincinnati. Despite that, I got Cincinnati next. Their record hasn't shown that. Their play hasn't necessarily shown that. But we like the roster. We like the talent. We feel like they have all the pieces to kind of jump up from this position and make a name for themselves at some point this year. All right, moving in at number 9, we got the Buffalo Bills. This is a team I just don't understand. I feel like this roster is better than 9. I feel like they should be playing better, but the evidence just points to they haven't, and not really sure why. Josh Allen's making too many mistakes, sure, but it doesn't feel like they have all the explosiveness all around. They're not giving the run game a chance. They're force-feeding the ball to Diggs, and no one else is making plays or getting open. And the defense has definitely been a huge step down, really disappointing them and leaving them in a bad spot. At 8, it's the Detroit Lions. They got smoked in all phases by the Baltimore Ravens. It'll be interesting to see how they respond. I'm disappointed that they weren't able to get more pressure. We knew that they were going to have trouble with Lamar Jackson as a running quarterback, but they were able to run, pass, do whatever they want to on offense with very little resistance. And the offense couldn't even get first down. So, you know, maybe 8's too high right now, but I don't want to overreact to one game. We'll see what they do next week. At 7, it's the Jacksonville Jaguars, and they again took care of business. That's a team that was an underdog on Thursday Night Football that we expected to win outright, and they did. Trevor Lawrence is looking good. They got that stud edge on the defensive side, but I wish they had a little bit more on the defensive side that wouldn't make this team, you know, too one-dimensional. At 6, it's the Dallas Cowboys. I know people are saying, hey, you're overrating the Cowboys. Look what's happened when they've played good teams. Look at the teams that they smoked and how bad they are. But I think more than anything, it's just not really trusting any of the teams below them more than them. You know, they have CeeDee Lamb. They have some key playmakers on defense. I think my biggest concern, honestly, with the Cowboys is the offensive line and the running game has not been as strong as expected or advertised. So that's an area that they're going to need to shore up if they want to be able to do something in the playoffs. At 5, I got the Baltimore Ravens. Maybe a bit of an overreaction, but you know, like I've said all along, if they use Lamar in a situation where he's run-pass option, getting to the edge, and putting defenses in tough spots, he's going to have a lot easier making throws down the field to guys that are more open. They really dominate in all phases, and they always seem to find that next young guy that can get to the ball, get a pass rush, find value in the draft with guys like Linderbaum or the safety from Notre Dame. They look really good. At 4 is the Eagles. Now, unfortunately, this is before we get to see their game with Miami that I think is going to tell a lot. Philly has solid offensive and defensive line. We say that all year. Everyone knows I'm not as big on Hurts as most people. Obviously, he's still a good quarterback because he can scramble. He can make time for guys to get open. He can run and pick up yardage with his legs. So that a threat alone makes him valuable. I just am curious if they just handed off the ball a lot more, how successful they would be, because I really think that's where their bread and butter is. At number 3, we have the Miami Dolphins. Now, I know they haven't went yet, and they have the top offense, and we had them at number 1, but I have a couple concerns. They got a lot of starters out on defense, especially their 2-star defensive cornerbacks. I'm concerned on how their offensive line will hold up. I know they have the number 1 rushing attack, but they have struggled at times, mainly at Buffalo. And I don't know if they might be the best offense, but I don't know if they're as complete as these other 2 teams. Especially at number 2, we were reminded of the greatness of the Kansas City Chiefs. This is a team that we had as the best roster at the beginning of the year. They got Patrick Mahomes, the most important guy in football. He's got the rocket launcher arm. He can scramble for days and get guys open. He can run for yards. And now we're seeing him with Travis Kelce as his security blanket. It's literally almost like an unstoppable play that he can always get him the ball. Plus, I think they're a little bit better on the defensive end, where they have studs at all 3 levels, like Chris Jones. They have the linebacker and then one of the best cornerbacks in the league. On top of all that, their center and 2-guard tandem is one of the best in the league. Virtually, very little weaknesses. They could probably use another wide receiver threat and a little better play on the tackles, but Kansas City is about as complete of a team as you get. And then back at number 1, we're expecting San Francisco to kill the Minnesota Vikings. And although I have concerns with Brock Purdy and I might not have them won all year. This team did lose 1 game, but despite that, they got playmakers all around. I know Trent Williams is going to be out this game. I don't think it'll be that big of a deal. He'll obviously be important to return, but you got Christian McCaffrey, you got Debo, you got Ayuk, you got a lot of ways with Kittle to get the ball out and get downfield. They're usually able to run the ball pretty well, and they're lights out on defense. So that top 3, I could probably maneuver around a lot of different ways. It'll be really interesting with 3 of the top 4 teams playing in these last 2 games of the week. But that's all I got for this week's Power Rankings. Let me know what you think. Like, subscribe, hit me in the comments, let me know what I missed, let me know what I got right, and let's just have conversations about where we have teams ranked. Thanks a lot.